Hi, this is John Rowell for the Rowell Report. Today is Thursday, November 20th, 2025, and we have rising tensions in East Asia. So we had some comments made by the Japanese Prime Minister during a question-answer session at the Japanese Parliament, and the answer of the Japanese Prime Minister, who's been in office barely a month, has stirred deep sentiments on the part of the Chinese, and a very strong response. So we're gonna take a look at this situation and maybe some background, which helps to understand this a little better, and then we'll move through why this isn't a fluke, why this is part of the developing situation, and finally we'll take a look at the map and why Taiwan is so important in the whole development and the key to understanding the conflict. So anyway, first we'll go to the question answer session and hear the question from the Member of Parliament and the Prime Minister's answer. So anyway, this is at 1 minute 52 seconds in this video. I'll put all the information below in the description, so you can just go to the description to get a link to all the information that's been consulted in this video. And if you do like this video, please hit the like button and subscribe. This helps my channel. I appreciate it very much. So let's get right into this question answer.
Even if that area were blockaded, Japan's ships could take a detour. It might take a few extra days, but Japan's energy or food supplies would not be cut off in any fundamental sense. Therefore, I want to ask again, under what circumstances would it become a survival-threatening situation? What do you think?
So this is about the naval blockade by China of Taiwan, and the question was, how does this imply a life-threatening situation for Japan? If this doesn't impact shipping for Japan, it doesn't impact energy or food. So why are we discussing a life-threatening situation? And remember that Japan is only to defend itself. It's not to create an army and go and attack and go on the offensive, so to speak. So this is written into the Japanese Constitution, and so we see the rise of Japanese militarism in the response of the Prime Minister. Let's listen to her answer.
In this case, it would indeed involve another country. As I remember correctly from that episode, if we take Taiwan as the example, or perhaps I should say another region, but at that time, I believe the discussion was framed around a Taiwan contingency. If a military attack were launched against Taiwan, and a naval blockade were carried out using warships, together with other methods, then the use of force could occur.
So here we go. She never mentions China. She never mentions the One China policy, which is agreed upon by the major powers. The One China policy is Taiwan is basically a province of China, and any matter related to China is an internal, any matter related to Taiwan is an internal matter for China. So she doesn't mention China. She mentions Taiwan by name, as if Taiwan is a separate country, and also speaks about going on the attack and in a situation which is not self-defense. So anyway, let's move on so this video doesn't go too long. Anyway, let's give a little background. the Prime Minister had made a visit to Malaysia, and here she is. You can see her visiting the monument to the Japanese soldiers who died in Malaysia. And here is a monument to the Malaysian soldiers. But we don't have any monument, we don't have her visiting any monument of the Chinese who died during this conflict. Interesting. So were there any Chinese in Malaysia when Japan had carried out colonialism within Malaysia? Let's go to that. So I just put it into Google and says during the Japanese occupation of Malaya or Malaysia. I don't know if it's synonymous. Sorry, but basically the same area. A significant but unconfirmed number of civilians died due to massacres, summary execution, starvation, and disease. And then we go down here, key atrocities and causes of death. The Suk Ching massacre. The most notable atrocity was the Suk Ching purge through cleansing. So basically an ethnic cleansing operation in early 1942. And here it gets it repeated. An ethnic cleansing campaign primarily targeting the Chinese population in Malaya and Singapore, whom the Japanese perceived as anti-Japanese. Well, you can perceive people as being anti-Japanese, but you don't ethnic cleanse them. So there's something much deeper about the militaristic perception of the Chinese, or the perception of the Chinese by the militaristic, neo-fascist, imperialist Japanese. So, anyway, we don't know the number of dead. Some estimates range between 5 and 50,000, and even could be up to 1 million. But anyway, we don't have good numbers. The Japanese Imperial Army did not keep records of how many people they killed. So these are unknown, unnamed individuals that were massacred by the Japanese. They also massacred large numbers of Chinese when they invaded China. So we have a perception of the Chinese by the Japanese, which, if you press a few buttons, could really show a deep hatred of the Chinese by certain elements of the Japanese, and the very poor way of which they speak about them. So all of this that is happening is starting to bring out a lot of distrust and anger among the Chinese people. And so now they have stopped the imports of fish into China. China was one of the largest importers of Japanese fish, and also China has recommended that Chinese students not visit Japan. So there were, I believe, about 450,000 flight cancellations, and among the visitors to Japan, the Chinese are the largest spenders. So they spend big when they're in Japan, and now so we have cut off this source of income, not only from the tourists but also from the exports. So you see that this situation is worsening, and also the Japanese Prime Minister has refused to rescind, to take back her words. So anyway, we move on in this whole situation, and you say, well, is it a fluke? It's just a one-time thing. It was a slip of the tongue. But no, we see Japan is slowly militarizing, And so it's moving away from a purely defensive status towards becoming a military power again. So here we have this article. Japan contracts Mitsubishi to mass produce sub-launched missile. So here we go down and we get a little more information about the missile. It's an anti-ship missile. So why would you want to take out a ship? Oh, let's say in the situation of a blockade of Taiwan, you could take out a ship from a submarine. Do you think that is a possibility? Anyway, sub-launched missile. The new sub-launched cruise missile will provide extended range and land attack capability compared with the Harpoon Block 2 anti-ship missile, which has a range of roughly 129 kilometers, 80 miles, which isn't much. And this new missile has a range from 200 kilometers to 900 kilometers. And so, anyway, Japan is upgrading its military capabilities. Also, we have here the information about Japan working on a hypersonic missile system. So here is this is also from the same website, the Defense Post. The Japan Self-Defense Force has tested, well, they should change that name because it's certainly not a self-defense force if you start getting ballistic missiles. But the Japan Self-Defense Force has tested the development of its first hypersonic missile system, which has been rushed into mass production in response to growing threats from North Korea and China. So when has North Korea threatened Japan? And when has China threatened Japan? So anyway, the creation of threats in order to justify the militarization of Japan is moving very quickly. Here we have an article from CNN. Japan is arming a warship with U.S. missiles that can hit targets up to 1,000 miles away. So that's 2,200 kilometers as the Pacific arms race heats up. So here is the article. A Japanese warship is on the way to the United States to be fitted with Tomahawk cruise missiles. Yes, the same ones that Zelensky has been begging for. The Tomahawk cruise missiles can be armed also with nukes. So if Japan gets Tomahawk missiles on their ships, then they would possibly be used to carry out a blockade of China and also attacks on its cities. So anyway, they're acquiring 400 Tomahawks. I believe they're also going to put Tomahawks in their submarines. I'd seen another article about that. But anyway, I think it's pretty clear that Tomahawk missiles aren't defensive missiles. They're offensive missiles. The U.S. uses it like they used it recently on Iran. There wasn't any need for the U.S. to defend its ships. The whole purpose of those Tomahawk missiles were to hit the Iranian nuclear sites. So nuclear energy sites and nuclear enrichment sites. So anyway, Tomahawks are not defensive missiles. And if you fit those with nukes, then we're talking about making Japan a nuclear power. Something that the U.S. did for Israel. So basically, the United States is trying to make Japan untouchable by China. So anyway, this would pit one nuclear power and nuclear weapons power against another. This would be a very dangerous situation, especially as Japan continues to militarize and elevate its support of militaristic adventures surrounding Taiwan. So anyway, and here we have China asking Japan to walk back their comments to recognize the One China policy. So anyway, let's listen to who is the person speaking. So anyway, I don't have a name, I'm sorry. But anyway, this is the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of China. So let's listen to what this is at the, I just have it at the 5-second mark, so we'll start it off.
问题上，日本政府的立场应当是坚持一个中国原则，恪守。
So she says the position of the Japanese government is supposed to be upholding the One China principle and abiding
中日4个政治问题。
by the spirit of 4 political documents between China and Japan instead of being deliberately ambiguous.
建的精神，而不是
Instead, and still less turning back the wheel of history. So here she's referring to the militarization of Japan.
是刻意模糊，更不能开历史倒车。80年前。
And here she says, 80 years ago, Chinese soldiers and civilians, including our Taiwan compatriots,
包括台湾同胞在内的中国军民浴血奋战，
defeated the Japanese aggressors after heroic and strenuous fighting,
打败日本侵略者，取得了抗日战
achieved the great victory of the Chinese People's War of Resistance against Japanese aggression. So, she's reminding Japan that if you go down this path of militarization, you will face another defeat. So anyway, you can see the war of words is becoming more aggressive on both sides. And we do know that China sent ships into a disputed water body that's disputed between China and Japan. And so now China is not sitting back with just words. It is moving forward towards affirming its rights and affirming its sovereignty over Taiwan. So anyway, and here we have the U.S. Having the back of the now militarizing Japan, and this Japan, which does not even mention the name of China, does not mention the One China policy. And here this article is from the Financial Times, and the U.S. ambassador offers unshakable support. So basically, you can see this idea of a future naval blockade. Japan, with its ships and submarines with Tomahawk missiles and anti-ship missiles. And we have something very interesting in this Financial Times article. So here we have further down the article, it says, China, which claims sovereignty over Taiwan. Claim. So the One China policy apparently has disappeared into thin air, and now they're just claiming sovereignty, like I don't know, like trying to retain Taiwan, which is this democracy which is trying to get out of the China sphere. So anyway, China, which claims sovereignty over Taiwan, is threatened to annex it. So in the one China policy, you have China and Taiwan is one nation, and Taiwan is simply kind of like you could call it a breakaway province or a rebellious province, but it's a province of China. And according to the current thinking of the neocons in the West, Taiwan is a separate country. Oh, by the way, the Japanese Prime Minister did refer to the leader of Taiwan as the president, so as if it was a separate country. So we have many signs now that we are moving forward with the with trying to strengthen Taiwan to break away from China and become a separate country. And all this is angering China, but it's curious that if all the powers recognize the one China policy, why would China need to annex Taiwan if it's a part? That's like saying the United States need to annex Hawaii or needs to annex Alaska. So anyway, you can see that the language now is becoming very they're moving in different directions, and the one China policy is, I wouldn't say it's dead, but effectively, practically speaking, the Western policies have long since abandoned the one China policy. They probably considered it a mistake at the time, or afterwards. So anyway, and I want to take a look quickly at why Japan is throwing its if China is if Japan is in a very difficult financial position, it needs exports, it needs investors, it needs to improve its economy. Why is it attacking the country that could bring it out of its financial malaise? So here we go to this article from histories.state.gov. Again, I'll put all the information below. So here we have a sentence. In 1947, Allied advisors essentially dictated a new constitution to Japan leaders. So basically, the United States took full political control over Japan, and some of the most profound changes in the document included downgrading the emperor's status to that of a figurehead without political control and placing more power in the parliamentary system, promoting greater rights and privileges for women and blah blah. So basically the U.S. did away with the previous setup with the emperor ruling China. Now it was basically a parliamentary system. The emperor would be a figurehead, and the U.S. established the constitution and the political parties. So basically, since 1947, the U.S. has been running Japan, dictating its political course, and has maintained its military force in Okinawa to make sure that this continues on without interruption. So anyway, you can understand that the return to militarization in Japan follows the idea that Japan is a vassal state of the United States and is following what the U.S. indicates. And especially now with Japan depending so much economically on the United States, it may not see any other way out of this situation than to move forward and to become more warlike. And we'll see why the U.S. wants Japan to be more warlike. So let's go here to a map. So here we have China, Taiwan, right in front. So here we have, China and Taiwan. And you say, well, China could survive without Taiwan. why not just let them have their own country, and they're doing really well for themselves. Why, if it's not broken, why change it? So anyway, or why fix it? So anyway, if you zoom out a little bit, okay, you zoom out, and I'll try to move myself out of the way here. So if you move out, you will see that Taiwan is a part of there's a series of islands, and Taiwan could be made to be a part of a total blockade of China. So here's Japan, and then we have down very close to Taiwan is Okinawa, where the U.S. force is. So basically, you have Taiwan, which would be part of a blockade. Okinawa, right next to Taiwan. There would be missile launchers there, and they could attack China directly. Then we have the Philippines. The Philippines has been also politically captured by the United States for the most part. And China was actually in the Philippines creating infrastructure projects, and the new government came in, destroyed those, practically dismantled them, and then dedicated the money to building their military capability. So anyway, you have the Philippines, and you have Taiwan, you have Japan. So here, the United States could block this strait here and create a choke point, and Japan would create a choke point here, and the Philippines and Taiwanese and Japanese would halt all incoming and outgoing vessels. So this would be a blockade for both products that they're exporting and also the importing of energy. So anyway, you can see that Taiwan is the key to this whole puzzle. The U.S. wants to stop China from becoming a rival power. The U.S. has determined that it only will allow itself to be the main power on this planet and will not allow for rival powers. So this is the hegemony, and this is how most hegemony works. And finally, we have the island of Guam, which is way, way, way out of the picture. And recently there was a victory parade for the 80th anniversary of the victory of China over Japan. And one of the new missiles that they have is called a Guam killer. So here is Guam. And why would they want to attack Guam? Because this is the first line of defense. You see, you would have U.S. ships here. You would have the Philippines, Taiwan, and these Japan islands, and Japan, South Korea forming a blockade. And then if China were to get out of that blockade, then we would have an additional blockade here from Guam. Guam would have anti-ship missiles that would fly using the satellite information from the United States towards the ships that could break through that blockade. So China has already thought ahead and said, hey, eventually Guam is going to be a problem. So they came up with this Guam killer missile. So anyway, this is the whole situation between Japan and China. Japan is militarizing. It is forming part of this blockade, which they will attempt to create some independence movement in Taiwan to get it to separate from China. And when that happens, China will create a blockade for Taiwan, and then Japan will attack. We may see also attacks from South Korea, and we may see attacks from the U.S. planes from Guam, and attacks from the Philippines Navy, and from the U.S. Navy, which is stationed in the Philippines. So anyway, you can see what is happening, and these these advancements are all progressive, small little steps, so that China does not become alarmed or disturbed or realize they've passed the point of no return. But the recent comments from the Japanese Prime Minister have brought China to understand a little more the direction in which Japan is going. It's going towards militarization and to once again become a military enemy. So anyway, think this concludes the video to understand why Japan and China are now in a period of tension, and I believe this is only going to get worse, not better, especially looking at the fact that Japan is militarizing with missiles, missiles on land, missiles on ships, missiles on submarines, and also their posture is changing towards Taiwan, and they're not recognizing the One China policy. So there are a lot of changes in Japan and how this person came to power. This has been maneuvered, I'm sure, through a lot of different actors. That might be a topic for another video, but you can see that the new Japanese Prime Minister was put in place exactly to bring about a situation of growing militarization of Japan in support of their ally. So anyway, that is my video for today. If you got to this point, again, please like this video, subscribe, and share. Thanks so much for joining me for this video, and I hope you have a great day. Bye-bye.